Books make you hope. Books make you dream. Books make you laugh. Books make you scream. This is the Books That Make You show, discussing books with authors and experts, unraveling the inner pages of all the books that help make us who we are.
Welcome, everybody. It is time for the Books That Make You show, and I am your host, Desiree Duffy. And the very first thing that I want to talk about is what's in my cup. It's novelties. I want to give a quick shout out to our wonderful sponsor, Novelty Tins. This is not a Peter Pan book. It's a tin, and guess what? It's got tea inside. NoveltyTins.com. That's the website. They have all sorts of bookish, fun teas. They've got Much Ado About Nothing tea. They've got some Anne of Green Gables tea. And we also have, I think this is one of my favorites, Pride and Peppermint. I know that might be a little bit hard to see. And if you're listening on the radio or the podcast, you can't see it at all. That's why I suggest you go to noveltytins.com and check them out because they're yummy and delicious. And they're just such bookish fun. Speaking of bookish fun, right now, we have a guest who is going to take us on a techno-thriller adventure on today's Books That Make You show. Political strife and espionage, new technology that threatens the world. Why is it that we love books that kind of scare us in this way? They keep us on the edge of our seats and just turning those pages when we're on these imaginative adventures. Well, our guest today is Harrison Taylor, and he has written such a book. His debut novel is Those Who Hunt Wolves. Now, it is an action-packed thriller. It's got that political intrigue and technological espionage. It's just filled with so much imagination and spirit, and it just packs a lot of punches. It's going to keep you guessing until the very end. Now, growing up watching Westerns and James Bond with his dad, Harrison also read comics under the covers by flashlight with his brother, and he developed a real love for story. And he chased his dream to become a storyteller. And now he also has a message for others, and that is follow your creative passion and don't let anyone stand in your way. Harrison, hello. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, Desiree. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to talk about your book. It's such a gripping novel, and there's just something about political thrillers and espionage and technology that kind of it grabs our imagination so much. So let's talk first. Just philosophically, why do you think we're drawn to books like this?
Well, I think for one, everyone likes to have a little bit of reality in their fantasy and in their entertainment. I think that when we see a little bit of our own world in the things that we watch, things that we read, we can relate to it a lot more, And what you see with movies that are like, techno thrillers, movies about the end of the world or, war, things like that, you see basically people gravitating to those works because it's kind of scary, but in the back of your mind, this could be my universe at any point in time. And even though it's thrilling, it's a reflection and you can relate to it. I think that's the big thing, relatability.
Yeah, I think you're right because, sci-fi and fantasy, it has the same elements, and horror, you mentioned horror, it's scary. But the unique thing here is it's grounded in real possibilities and science and things that are potentially happening. So let's talk specifically about Those Who Hunt Wolves. Can you set the stage for us? Just tell us what's going on in this book.
Sure. So Those Who Hunt Wolves, as you said, it's a science techno thriller. It follows these two agents named Shepard and Graham, and they are former agents for a covert organization known as 7721. 7721 decides that they're of no longer use, and they gun them down, leave them for dead. Shepard and Graham say, we want a little revenge. And the way they do that is by stealing a very dangerous weapon known as the blackout. And it puts them on this crazy adventure where super soldiers are chasing them, deadly investment bankers, generals are chasing them, and you have ex-husbands and you have ex-wives, and it just makes a melting pot for a really, really interesting yet thrilling story.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I really love about it is because you just got all of these different things going on, and at the core, it's that need and that desire for revenge that kind of drives these characters. Can you tell me a little bit about the character development? Where did you go for inspiration, and how did you create these two characters? Because they play so well off of each other.
So, it's funny that you asked that question. So I pull a lot of my ideas from cinema, and I pull a lot of my ideas from, believe it or not, anime as well. And one of the big things in anime is that you'll have characters that are very similar, but they're similar in terms of being, what they do, but they're very different. And they don't tend not to like each other, but it's the dynamics of them not liking each other that makes them very entertaining to watch or read in this case.
Mhm.
Shepard, he's a guy who's very not by the book. He's very thinks out of the box, while Graham, he's much more follow the book kind of guy, much more streamlined. And that's basically like mixing oil and water. And
Mhm.
they don't like each other, but they have to stick together because it's a life or death situation, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And that's just reflective of our own lives, right?
Right.
Some people are more by the book, some people are a little bit more by the seat of their pants, and we all deal with other people. I happen to be by the book. That's me. I'm stay in your box, stay in your lane type of a thing. So I can definitely understand having to all of a sudden like a buddy movie or a buddy book, right? Your
Right.
buddy is your opposite image, like not mirror image, but opposite image. And that's what makes it so exciting. I love too that you're looking at anime and other types of genres to influence your writing. Can we step back in time a little bit? Because as I understand it, your dad was watching Westerns with you and James Bond, and then you're, hanging out with your big brother and doing the naughty things like reading comic books and stuff like that. How did your upbringing influence your writing?
So I never really thought about this until I started writing, actually. But ever since I was probably 3, 4 years old, I remember sitting with my dad watching old Clint Eastwood movies. So the first big Western movie I remember seeing was The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly with Clint Eastwood. Um, and that just had just a resounding effect on my writing because if you haven't seen that movie before, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, it's basically about, a good guy who having to work with this guy who's he's not really a good guy, but he's not really a bad guy either. And they don't mix together very well, either in that story. And it's that dynamic of that anti-hero that you kind of see in the Clint Eastwood westerns and the Sergio westerns, the man with no name stories. And then growing up, also me and my brother, huge comic book fans. So we would read X-Men, big Marvel,
Mhm.
X-Men. Definitely loved Wolverine. And we also big Batman fans, which is the DC side. And so just kind of that fantasy aspect of those comic books really had an impact on my writing that I didn't really realize until I started writing, years down the road.
Yeah, yeah. And I do want to talk to you a little bit because you have a very distinct passion for inspiring others to follow their passion. And I do want to get into that, but I also want to talk about journaling a little bit. So many writers refer to journaling as something that they do to help them write, to help them with their thoughts, to help them kind of work out their emotions in some cases.
Right.
And you are a journaler, or were a journaler. Can you talk a little bit about journaling?
So I was a journaler. I was a
Okay.
brief journaler. So when I finished with college, I fell into a bit of a depression. And when I fell into this depression, as I was trying to pull my way out of it, I thought it'd be a good idea to start journaling my thoughts and my feelings, which I'm not knocking anyone at all. It's journaling can be very cathartic,
Mhm.
absolutely. And during the time, I thought for myself it'd be pretty cool, like Doogie Howser at the end of his the end of the TV show. You see Doogie typing, a little thing on his computer. So I come home from work one night and I say, okay, I'm going to do this. And I sit down and I start typing and I start typing about my day. And I look at the first sentence and I go, man, this is boring. And I started writing ever since. And so, journaling was my segue into becoming a writer.
Yeah, yeah. And it always fascinates me the journeys writers take to get there. And there's lots of people who will pontificate on the right path and the right way and all of that. But in the end, after talking to so many writers, I find that everybody's path, it just needs to be their own. They can't necessarily do it the exact way somebody else did because we're all unique. So, with that in mind, when you're creating your stories, how in a practical manner are you doing it? Are you the kind of writer who's outlining? Do you make a world Bible? Do you just kind of pants your way through it and write it and go back and rewrite? What's your methodology?
So I'm definitely a discovery writer. I have on music and it's almost as if I'm seeing the story play out in my head as a movie, and I'm just writing what I see. And that's my first draft, essentially. When I go back the second time, that is when I'm going through the editing phase, and if something doesn't seem right, a certain scene or a world building, then I'll go ahead and do an outline. But that initial draft, I am just listening to music. I'm just writing what I see.
Yeah, it just pours through you. Do you hear the characters talking to you as if they're like right there? Does that happen to you?
I do actually, yeah. It's weird.
Yeah. You're not crazy. So many writers tell me that they feel like the characters just start talking and almost demanding that you hear their voice, and I think that's a fascinating thing as well.
Right.
Um, let's talk a little bit about just following your passion and any advice or tips that you might have for, young writers or young people who might be looking at, should I go down this very practical path or should I follow my dreams and be a creative, be a writer or do something that's a little bit more on the artistic side? What are your thoughts?
So whatever passion you have, you should follow it. I had a very strange path into coming into becoming a writer because I actually had two passions. My first passion, I believe, was writing. However, I had another passion, which was medicine. So I went to medical school and became a doctor. But that passion to write, that passion to create, to be an artist, it always nagged at me through college, medical school, even residency. And because, getting older and having responsibilities, I was like, well, maybe I shouldn't follow that. And that was incorrect thinking because at the end of the day, you only have one life to live. And there's no point in doing something with your life that you're not going to be happy doing. So I always tell folks, whatever it is, whether it be writing, filmmaking, acting, you know, you might not find yourself, able to pay rent, but if you're happy, that's much better place to be. So
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, at the very least, take the job that has to pay the bills.
Right.
but always find a little bit of time for doing what you love. I think that just makes us well-rounded humans, right?
Absolutely.
Now, as I understand it too, you've had the opportunity to speak with a lot of veterans of wars, and a lot of that is, you have the war and the espionage that's going on in the background of your writing. Has talking with people like that and hearing their stories, has that influenced you?
Most definitely. So one of my biggest honors of being a physician is being able to work at the VA with veterans. And, the cool thing about veterans is they'll tell you the most amazing stories.
Mhm.
Excuse me. And, when they tell you these stories, they're so vibrant and they're so alive when they tell them to you. And you can just sit there for hours listening to them. And they're so happy to talk to someone, you know? And most definitely, that definitely played a part in how I shaped this story. For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's dig into some of the tech in those who hunt wolves a little bit. Because sometimes, Harrison, I got to tell you, I get scared. I get afraid of what AI might do and what weapons of destruction could do. And, we've seen a lot of movies, for example, and it's kind of similar to what you have in your book with EMPs. An EMP is a real thing. They really can just like block out and cut off all electronic communication and stuff like that. Do you sometimes just kind of look at this and I don't know, maybe I'm a big baby, but I really get scared sometimes.
Well, I think there's definitely a reason to be concerned. You know, Fiction always mimics reality to a certain degree. And, for example, this is not a weapon, but if you ask someone, 5 years ago, or no, 10 years ago, that is there such thing as a black hole, they would tell you no, there is no such thing as a black hole. It's all theoretical. Well, we know now that black holes exist and it's a real thing. It's not until we realize that something exists that we're actually concerned about. You know, and I think that is the scary thing about technology, that we always think that technology is being used for something evil as opposed to something good or beneficial. And I think that's the real concerning thing. Because technology is supposed to be here to enrich our lives, to make us better, to make us healthier, smarter, all that. But when you listen to the radio, you listen to the news, things like that, technology seems to always be exploited for negative things such as hacking or, weapons of mass destruction or bio warfare, things like that. And I think that's what makes this so scary in terms of, technology in a thriller setting, because it's so close to our reality.
Yeah, yeah. And it taps into what would you do? What would you do if you were there? What would you do if something like this happened? I'm going to ask you to get out your crystal ball. This is a little bit of a red herring question, but I always love finding out because writers seem like they're prophetic in many ways. The books that we're reading often seem just a little bit ahead of our times, especially when you start getting into technology and some sci-fi stuff. Even look at Star Trek and Gene Roddenberry and how that, how many years ago had a lot of prophetic and influence on real technology that ended up developing.
Yeah.
So, with that said, Harrison, in your crystal ball, what do you see technology wise in 10 years from now? What do you see our world being like? How is it going to change?
Wow. Oh, wow.
I know that's one of those questions where it's just like, wait,
Um,
a little bit deep.
yeah, but it's an interesting question. Um, if you look at where we're going right now in terms of just different aspects of society, when you look at, the car industry, or you look at the how the internet is changing, medicine even. Um, I think we're going to see it. I think what happens is your advancements that may have taken, 30, 40 years, they get cut in half. And because we're just getting more, the knowledge is much easier to grasp, you know? So if I was to just guess what I would see 10 years from now with what we have now, I would say that I wouldn't be surprised if we're not driving cars ourselves in 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be probably my my guess.
And maybe that's a good thing because there's a lot of us who really can't drive.
Right, right. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. And again, it goes, I guess it's that primitive part of all of our brains where it's like, oh, that sounds really scary. I'm going to think of the worst case scenario. But then I love the fact that you're looking at things as that's a positive because that could be really cool and liberating and give us more time to do so many other things.
Right.
I think it's interesting, too, that you bring up how fast technology develops because it is an exponential type of a growth. I
Right.
always look back and think, when I was a kid, if somebody told me that they were going to take a picture of me with a phone, I would have looked at them like they were crazy. It's like, what are you even talking about? Just the idea of having a handheld device that does all of these things, like that Star Trek tricorder does, was
Exactly.
just mind-boggling. And I'm not saying I'm young, but I'm also not that old either. So when you think of what's going to happen 10 years from now, because all of that technology is just growing and growing, it's just fascinating, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, most definitely. Now, and of course, there's a plethora of examples I could give in terms of what to see in 10 years. But yeah, I would probably say the most likely would be the car industry, us not driving and having everyone driving electrical cars in 10 years. I wouldn't be surprised with that either. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you're right, a lot of green energy and
yeah,
transitions to that way too, because we have to stop our dependency on oil. So with that vein of thought in mind, what is Harrison working on next? What are we going to see from you? Is there going to be more books? What are you writing? What are you working on?
so I'm actually working on another novel right now. It's actually a completely different novel from the techno-thriller genre. It's actually about heroes and villains.
Oh, that's exciting. That's exciting.
Yeah.
And can you tell everybody where they can go to find you, find out more about you, your social media handles? How can we follow you and make sure that we are always in touch with what you're working on?
Absolutely. So metalrooster.com, that's the publishing company that is publishing Those Who Hunt Wolves. And that's where my about pages and more information about the book is. So check it out. Also
Okay.
on Instagram as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll do that. And one more parting thought. So those who hunt wolves, go ahead and hold it up. I want people to be able to see the cover in addition to my little drawing back there. Excellent. Excellent. And who would you say is somebody that this book is for? I know it's for people who like techno thrillers, but if somebody's going shopping, is this a good book for, maybe guys who like John Grisham? What are some of your comparable titles?
Yeah, so definitely for someone who's a Tom Clancy fan,
Mm.
this is right up their alley, you know. Um Tom Clancy, James Patterson, um folks who like thrillers with a twist, this is what you want to read.
Yeah, yeah. On the edge of your seat. I think it's good for as like a travel book or something
Yeah,
like that, a vacation
absolutely.
book, because it's yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Harrison Taylor, author of Those Who Hunt Wolves. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Books That Make You show.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. And thank you, everybody else, for being with us today. You can find out more about us on our website. That is booksthatmakeyou.com. Make sure you sign up for our email alerts. We do a monthly email newsletter, so you can always find out about the great guests that we have, like Harrison Taylor, and stay informed about all of the bookish news and happenings and things that are going on. Plus, you can follow us on Facebook. We are also on Instagram. We are on YouTube. So I know a lot of times people are listening to the show and they're like, what is she talking about? Hold up the book. I can't see it. Well, that's because we do the videos as well on YouTube. And I suggest that you subscribe. All you got to do is ring that bell up on the top and subscribe to the Books That Make You YouTube channel. And we are kind of new to the TikTok game, but we are on TikTok. So follow Books That Make You on TikTok as well. Until next time, all of my bookish buddies, please enjoy all of the books that make you exactly who you are. And also, please stay positive here on mystar95.com with more music for the entire family.
I felt fine. How'd I do?
You did great.
Good.
Great. Excellent answers. Excellent. I might want to add, you let me know, because I kind of threw a few curveballs out there.
No worries.
Because it came up, it just came to mind.
Yeah.
I could add some of those to your talking points as well.
Perfect. Because I didn't have a problem answering them. At least I didn't feel like it.
No.
Yeah. So.
And what I do, I don't know if you've noticed this. I do this intentionally. I don't want to just ask a question and let it hang. I hate that when people do that, because then you're like, oh crap, I'm dancing. I kind of lead into it so you know where I'm going, so the wheels can at least start turning a little bit.
Right.
But then, again, so if I put in there a question like, ask Harrison what his predictions are for 10 years in the future, you'll know, you'll have something ready to go. So, okay, cool.
No, it felt fine to me. Yeah.
Excellent. I'm so excited for you. Okay. Are you ready to do TikTok with me?
Excuse me. Yeah, a little bit. Yes, I am ready.
All right. Take a drink or do whatever.
Okay.
And likewise, I'm going to tell you what the questions are right now. So at least you have a few seconds to kind of think about it.
Mm-hmm.
First thing I'm going to ask you is just give us the setup really quick, though. What's going on in your book, Those Who Hunt Wolves? And then I'm going to ask you kind of a cutesy question. Should we be afraid of technology? And then I'm going to give you the question, if given a choice, should people follow their passion or fall in line with what society tells them to do with their life? I think that's an easy answer.
Right.
And then I'm going to ask, my final question is, why should people get your book? And then, of course, feel free to hold it up and everything. And I'll ask you to give your website at the very, very end too. Okay.
Gotcha.
All right. Here we go. Here we are with author Harrison Taylor, the author of Those Who Hunt Wolves. Harrison, tell me, what's going on in your book, Those Who Hunt Wolves?
So Those Who Hunt Wolves is a techno-thriller that follow these two covert agents named Shepard and Graham, who get gunned down, and they want to exact some revenge by stealing a very mysterious weapon known as the Blackout.
I love it. Okay. Sometimes I get afraid of technology. Should we be afraid of technology?
I would say no, but in my book, yes.
I love that. My book is going to scare the heck out of you, but no, don't worry about it. All right, Harrison, a serious question now. If given a choice, should people, in your opinion, follow their passion or just kind of fall in line with what society tells them to do with their life?
Always follow your passions.
Right on, my friend. And tell us really quick, why should people get your book, Those Who Hunt Wolves?
This guy right here is a page turner. Take it on a vacation, take it on a plane ride. You'll be done by the time you get home.
Oh, it is. Excellent. Thank you, Harrison. Really quick, give us your website. Give us your details.
So you can find me at metalroosterpublishinghouse.com, and we are also on Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you, Harrison.
Thank you.
The host and executive producer of the Books That Make You show is Desiree Duffy. Sound mastering and engineering by Dave Napox. Social media and content promotion by Siddhi Jahagirdar. Copywriting and editing by Mike Robinson. The Books That Make You show is an award-winning podcast produced by Black Chateau Enterprises.